The rejection. Commander Elena Zhao stood alone in the antechamber of the Galactic Federation Council Hall, her crisp navy uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes and variegated exoskeletons of the alien representatives filing past. After 50 years of preparation, humanity was finally being considered for Federation membership. Earth had unified its governments, solved its climate crisis, and developed faster-than-light travel, all Federation prerequisites. Zhao had rehearsed her acceptance speech during the 6-week journey here, envisioning humanity's triumphant entry into galactic society. A Melnarian attendant, crystal-like and nearly translucent, approached with a gesture that Zhao recognized as respectful acknowledgement. "The Council will see you now, Commander." Zhao nodded and followed the being through a series of corridors that seemed to shift and realign themselves. Federation architecture was still disorienting to human perception, despite all her training. The main chamber unfurled before her like an enormous blooming flower, with concentric rings of delegates seated around a central dais. The chamber stretched so high that clouds formed near its ceiling, and holographic displays showed the positions of member worlds throughout the galaxy. "Representative of Earth," announced the council speaker, an ancient Velthurian whose skin rippled with iridescent patterns. "Step forward and present your petition." Zhao advanced to the center dais, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. 7 billion humans waited for news of this moment. "Esteemed council members, I stand before you as humanity's ambassador, bringing greetings from Earth. For half a century, we have worked to meet the Federation's standards, unifying our world, developing sustainable technologies, and establishing peaceful stellar exploration. We come seeking membership among the stars, offering our unique perspectives and capabilities." The speaker gestured to an ornate display where Earth's application metrics scrolled in Federation standard. "We have reviewed the application thoroughly. Earth has indeed made remarkable progress in a relatively short period. However," Zhao felt a cold weight in her stomach at that single word. "The application for membership is denied." A murmur rippled through the gathered delegates. Some nodded in agreement, others seemed surprised. Zhao maintained her composure through years of diplomatic training, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "With respect," she said carefully, "may I inquire as to the reasons?" The speaker signaled to various council representatives who rose one by one to explain. "Human development is remarkably accelerated but unstable," said a gaseous entity contained in a hovering metallic sphere. "You advanced from atmospheric flight to lunar landing in merely 66 years, a pace that suggests dangerous impulsivity." A reptilian delegate with overlapping scales that shimmered like oil on water stood next. "Your species exhibits excessive emotional variability. Federation projections indicate a 76% probability that humans would destabilize established diplomatic protocols. Your warfare history is particularly concerning," added a being composed entirely of interconnected energy filaments. "You've weaponized nearly every technological advance before finding peaceful applications." And finally, the speaker concluded, "You are simply too young. Most species undergo at least 2 millennia of interstellar exploration before consideration. Earth has barely managed 100 years." Zhao absorbed each criticism, recognizing the prejudice beneath the veneer of objective assessment. The Federation wasn't rejecting Earth for failing to meet their standards. They were rejecting humanity for being human. "The Council recommends Earth reapply in approximately 300 years, the speaker added, almost kindly. "This will allow suitable time for your species to mature properly." 300 years. Everyone Zhao knew would be long dead. The great-grandchildren of Earth's current generation would be elderly before humanity could try again. "I understand," Zhao said, though she didn't. "Earth thanks the Council for its consideration." As she turned to leave, a small delegation from Proxima Centauri intercepted her. Their ambassador, a diminutive being with 6 limbs and silver eyes, spoke quietly. "This outcome was predetermined, Commander. The older members fear your kind's adaptability. They rejected our world 90 years ago for similar reasons, though we've since gained observer status. That's not particularly encouraging, Zhao replied. Perhaps not, but there are others like us. The Federation claims to represent the galaxy, yet over 40% of spacefaring civilizations remain outside their chambers. Remember that. Before Zhao could respond, the Proximan delegates melted back into the crowd. The brief interaction left her with a strange sense of possibility beneath her disappointment. The trip back to Earth felt infinitely longer than the journey out. Zhao's ship, the UES Endeavor, carried not just her crew, but the crushing weight of humanity's rejection. Lieutenant Commander Jacobs, her second-in-command, found her staring at star charts in the navigation room late in the ship's artificial night cycle. "You should rest, Commander," he said, floating a cup of coffee toward her in the low-gravity section. "I've been studying the Federation's territorial maps," she replied, ignoring his suggestion. "Look at this pattern." The holographic display showed Federation space sprawling across the galactic arm like an irregular spiderweb, with curious gaps between the strands. "These empty corridors," she continued, highlighting several regions, "aren't empty at all. They're non-Federation systems, dozens of them, forming their own trade and travel networks just outside Federation influence." "The rejected worlds?" Jacobs asked. "And those who never applied." The Proximan ambassador hinted at this. She brought up another display. "Computer, show known spacefaring civilizations not affiliated with the Federation." The map transformed, filling with new points of light, smaller, more scattered, but numerous. "My God," Jacobs whispered. "There are hundreds. 173 confirmed, likely more," Zhao said. "The Federation isn't the galactic unity it presents itself as. It's just the largest club, one that doesn't want us as members. So what do we do? Wait 3 centuries and hope they've changed their minds?" Zhao closed the star chart with a gesture. "No, we build something better." The United Earth Council chamber fell silent as Commander Zhao finished her report. The circular hall, with representatives from Earth's former nations arranged in concentric rings, reminded her uncomfortably of the Federation Council, though here, at least, all the faces were human. Secretary General Okafor, a tall woman from the United African States, spoke first. "So after 50 years of restructuring our entire civilization to meet their standards, they've rejected us because we're too human." "Essentially, yes," Zhao confirmed. "They claim we're too young, too emotional, too unpredictable." "And your recommendation, Commander?" asked Counselor Wu from the East Asian Cooperative. Zhao straightened. "I believe waiting for Federation acceptance would be a mistake. They've shown their hand. They don't want equals. They want conformity. But there's another path forward." With a gesture, she activated the chamber's holographic system, displaying the map she'd studied on the Endeavor. "These are non-Federation worlds, some rejected, some voluntarily independent. Many possess technologies and resources the Federation covets but can't access without violating their own non-interference policies." "You're suggesting an alliance?" asked Counselor Romero from South America. "I'm suggesting we create an alternative. Not just an alliance, but a different model of interstellar cooperation, one that values innovation and adaptation rather than fears it." The chamber erupted in overlapping conversations. Secretary General Okafor raised her hand for silence. "This would be a monumental undertaking, Commander, potentially dangerous as well. The Federation might view such actions as hostile. They've already demonstrated their hostility by rejecting us despite our meeting every stated requirement," Zhao countered. "And they've done the same to dozens of other promising civilizations. I've already made preliminary contact with Proximan representatives. They're interested in discussions." After hours of debate, the vote was not unanimous but decisive. Earth would pursue what came to be called Operation Nebula, a diplomatic initiative to connect with other non-Federation worlds and establish a new interstellar community. "Commander Zhao," the Secretary General announced, "you will lead this effort. Select your team and resources. This council authorizes you to speak for Earth in these negotiations. As the meeting adjourned, Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet approached Zhao. You realize what you're doing, Alina. You're changing humanity's course in the galaxy. They left us no choice, she replied. The Federation wants us to spend centuries becoming something we're not. Instead, we'll spend those years building something that celebrates what we are. Chen nodded slowly. What will you call this new alliance? Zhao looked back at the star map, the scattered lights representing civilizations that had all been deemed unworthy in some way. For now, we call it possibility. But I think, eventually, we'll call it home. Over the next 2 years, Commander Zhao, now Ambassador Zhao, traveled to 17 non-Federation worlds. Some missions were diplomatic triumphs, others ended in disappointment, but with each contact, the network grew. The Proximans introduced Earth to the Kelhari, silicon-based beings whose mathematical understanding surpassed humanity's by centuries. The Kelhari, in turn, facilitated contact with the Noor Collective, a species of photosynthetic intelligences who had developed revolutionary energy technologies. Earth scientists worked alongside alien counterparts, sharing knowledge without the Federation's restrictive protocols. Human adaptability, so feared by the Federation, proved to be an invaluable asset. Where other species might take decades to integrate new concepts, humans could often implement them within years or even months. By the 3rd year, Operation Nebula had expanded beyond diplomatic missions to include joint scientific ventures, cultural exchanges, and the beginning of a cooperative defense initiative. The latter became increasingly important as Federation scout ships began appearing at the edges of Earth's solar system with growing frequency. In a secure facility beneath the Himalayan mountains, Earth's leadership gathered with representatives from 23 non-Federation worlds. The meeting room hummed with translation devices as beings from across the galactic arm communicated in dozens of languages. We stand at a crossroads, Ambassador Zhao addressed the gathering. Individually, we remain vulnerable to Federation pressure. Together, we represent a viable alternative to their hegemony. The Kelhari representative, a crystalline entity that communicated through vibrations, responded, "The Federation has begun restricting access to key trade routes that pass through their territory. 3 of our merchant vessels were turned away at the Orion Corridor last month." Similar reports came from other representatives. The Federation wasn't confronting them directly, but was using its control of established routes and resources to isolate the growing alliance. This is why formalization is necessary, Zhao continued. I propose we establish the Terran Accord, a mutual recognition pact that establishes free movement between our worlds and coordinated diplomatic engagement with the Federation. Why Terran? Asked the representative from Ta City, whose species resembled enormous feathered serpents. This suggests Earth leadership, because Earth is the newest target of Federation rejection, Zhao explained. We represent no historical threat or competition to any of you. And, she added with a slight smile, because humans are stubborn enough to stand up to the Federation directly while the rest of you maintain plausible deniability. This brought a wave of reactions that the translators interpreted as laughter or appreciation across multiple species. Over the following days, the framework for the Terran Accord took shape. Unlike the hierarchical structure of the Federation, the Accord would operate on principles of mutual benefit and minimal interference. Technology sharing would be encouraged rather than regulated. Defense would be cooperative rather than centralized. When the announcement was finally made, Federation observers were caught completely off guard. Humanity, rather than retreating to lick its wounds, had emerged as the nucleus of a new galactic power, one whose combined territories created a significant counterweight to Federation influence. They expected us to wait patiently for centuries, Zhao told Secretary General Okafor after the signing ceremony. Instead, we built our own table. And now, the Secretary General asked, the Federation won't take this lying down. Ambassador Zhao looked out at the representatives of 23 worlds mingling in Earth's first truly interstellar diplomatic reception. Now we show them what happens when you underestimate humanity, and all the others they deemed unworthy. The Alliance. 5 years after Earth's rejection by the Galactic Federation, the Terran Accord had grown from 23 founding members to 42 worlds spanning 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. What had begun as a coalition of necessity had evolved into a thriving network of technological and cultural exchange, unfettered by the Federation's cautious restrictions. Ambassador Elena Zhou stood on the observation deck of the TSV Horizon, the first diplomatic vessel built with collaborative technologies from 17 different Accord species. Outside the viewport, the enormous ring station known as Convergence spun slowly against the backdrop of a blue-white gas giant. Constructed in neutral space along what had once been a minor trade route, Convergence had become the beating heart of the Accord, a symbol of what cooperation without domination could achieve. "Quite the view, isn't it?" said a voice behind her. Admiral Jacobs, formerly her lieutenant commander, had aged visibly during these demanding years. The responsibility of overseeing the Accord's defense initiatives had etched new lines around his eyes. 5 years ago, this was empty space, Zhao replied. Now 10,000 beings from across the galaxy call it home. And the Federation has finally noticed, Jacobs said, his expression growing serious. Our intelligence suggests they've called an emergency council session. Your presence has been requested. Zhao raised an eyebrow. Requested or demanded. Their exact words were strongly encouraged to attend. Jacobs handed her a data tablet. They've sent coordinates for a neutral meeting point. Nothing about the Terran Accord itself. No acknowledgement of our existence as an organization. None. As far as their official communications go, they're simply inviting Earth's representative to discuss matters of mutual concern. Zhao scrolled through the Federation message, noting the carefully diplomatic language that nonetheless carried an undercurrent of tension. They still think they're just dealing with uppity humans, she said with a thin smile. We should correct that misunderstanding. The Federation's chosen meeting location was an ancient space station orbiting a neutron star in a system technically outside both Federation and Accord space. The station predated both organizations, built by a long-vanished civilization and maintained now as a diplomatic neutral ground. The Horizon approached cautiously, escorted by 3 Accord defense vessels, 1 human, 1 Proximan, and 1 Kelhari. Federation ships already surrounded the station, their sleek designs conveying the ancient power of their builders. They'd brought the diplomatic equivalent of a battle fleet, observed Counselor Ndidi, Earth's representative to the Accord Governing Council. 7 member worlds represented. That's almost half their executive committee. They're trying to intimidate us, Zhao replied, adjusting her formal uniform. Unlike the utilitarian design of her old Earth fleet uniform, her Accord ambassador's attire incorporated elements from multiple member species, Proximan metalwork on the shoulders, Kelhari crystalline patterns down the sleeves, and other subtle nods to the diverse alliance she represented. It won't work, Ndidi said confidently. No, Zhao agreed, but let them think it might. The Federation understands power displays. Let's give them one they won't forget. When the Horizon docked, Zhou did not disembark immediately. Instead, as planned, representatives from each of the original 23 Accord worlds emerged first, forming an honor corridor inside the station's docking bay. Only then did Zhou and the Accord delegation proceed through this living demonstration of unity. The Federation representatives waited in the station's central chamber, a vast dome with walls of some transparent material that offered a spectacular view of the neutron star's radiation jets. The ancient Velthurian who had denied Earth's membership 5 years earlier stood at the center of the Federation group, apparently still serving as council speaker. Commander Zhao, the speaker began. We, Ambassador Zhao, corrected a towering Kelhari representative beside her, its crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. She speaks for the Terran Accord, not merely Earth. The speaker's iridescent skin patterns shifted in what Zhao recognized as irritation. This meeting was called to address concerns regarding Earth's activities in violation of Federation spatial sovereignty. These, other parties, were not invited. Yet here we are, said Zhao calmly. The Terran Accord operates as a unified entity. If you wish to discuss concerns with Earth, you address all 42 worlds of the Accord. A wave of discomfort passed through the Federation delegation. Clearly, they had not expected such a coordinated response, or perhaps they hadn't realized the full extent of the alliance Earth had built. Very well, the speaker conceded after conferring quietly with colleagues. The Federation Council has observed with growing concern the establishment of unauthorized trade routes, settlement of unclaimed systems, and technological exchanges occurring outside Federation oversight. These activities destabilize the carefully maintained balance of galactic civilization. Zhao allowed herself a small smile. Interesting. I don't recall the Federation claiming authority over systems outside its borders, nor asserting the right to regulate commerce between independent worlds. Perhaps you could direct me to the relevant statutes. A Melnarian representative stepped forward, its crystalline form catching the light. The Federation maintains the right to ensure stability throughout recognized space. Your Accord has been recruiting worlds within Federation spheres of influence. We recruit no one, countered the Proximan ambassador. Worlds approach us seeking mutual benefit without subordination, an arrangement the Federation seems unwilling to offer. The diplomatic sparring continued for hours, with Federation representatives alternating between thinly veiled threats and appeals to traditional order. The Accord delegation remained unified in response. They acknowledged Federation authority within Federation space, but rejected any claim to jurisdiction beyond those borders. Finally, the Federation speaker shifted tactics. The disruption to established trade patterns is becoming untenable. 3 major Federation trade routes now pass through systems aligned with your Accord. Shipping delays and increased security protocols are causing economic hardship across 17 Federation worlds. This was the opening Zhao had been waiting for. A regrettable situation, she said, one that could be alleviated through formal recognition of the Terran Accord and establishment of standardized transit protocols. The speaker's skin patterns flashed rapidly, a sign of agitation. The Federation does not recognize political entities formed explicitly to undermine our authority. We formed for mutual benefit, not opposition, Zhao corrected. But if the Federation cannot adapt to changing realities, perhaps the world suffering these economic hardships should reconsider their affiliations. The threat was subtle but clear. The Accord controlled key strategic locations that had previously been considered too marginal for Federation attention. Now those unimportant systems had become critical choke points. As the meeting concluded without resolution, the speaker approached Zhao privately. This path leads to conflict, Commander. Forgive me. Ambassador Zhao. The Federation has maintained peace for over 4,000 years. Peace for its members, Zhao replied. Exclusion for everyone else. We're creating an alternative that values innovation over stagnation and cooperation over conformity. Your council made its choice 5 years ago when it rejected Earth. We've simply responded accordingly. By building a rival power. By building a better table, one where everyone has a seat. In the months following the diplomatic confrontation, a new reality settled across the galaxy. The Federation, for all its ancient power, could not simply eliminate the upstart Accord. Military action would violate the Federation's own foundational principles and potentially fracture its membership. Economic sanctions proved equally ineffective, as the Accord controlled resources and trade routes that Federation worlds desperately needed. On Earth, the anniversary of the Federation's rejection, now celebrated as Accord Day, brought crowds to the newly completed Accord Embassy complex in New Geneva. The compound featured architectural elements from all 42 member worlds, a physical manifestation of the Alliance's philosophy of strength through diversity. Ambassador Zhao, returning from meetings with Accord leadership on Convergence Station, addressed the gathered crowd. 5 years ago, the Federation told humanity we were too young, too unpredictable, and too emotional to join their ranks. They were right about one thing. We are emotional. We feel deeply. We care passionately. And when rejected, we don't simply accept our assigned place. Cheers erupted from the crowd, which included not just humans but representatives from across the Accord. Today, the Terran Accord announces the completion of the Nexus Network, a series of stabilized wormhole corridors connecting all Accord worlds. This achievement, combining Kelhari mathematical models with Noor energy manipulation and human engineering, will reduce travel times between member worlds by an average of 70%. The announcement sent shockwaves through galactic society. The Federation had controlled stable wormhole technology for millennia, using access as a way to maintain influence over client worlds. The Accord had not only replicated this technology, but improved upon it, and planned to make it available to all members without restriction. Within weeks, 14 worlds on the Federation's periphery began formal discussions about transferring their allegiance to the Accord. The Federation Council, facing its first genuine crisis in centuries, convened an emergency session that lasted 63 days. On the 64th day, a Federation diplomatic vessel arrived at Convergence Station. Its passenger was not the Speaker but the Grand Arbiter of the Federation, a position so rarely seen in public that many believed it to be largely ceremonial. The Arbiter, a being of indeterminate species who appeared as a shifting collection of light and shadow, requested a private audience with Ambassador Zhao. In a secure chamber at the heart of Convergence, they met alone. "Ambassador," the Arbiter began, its voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere, "you have accomplished something remarkable. Some on the Council consider it miraculous. Others call it catastrophic." "And your assessment?" Zhao asked. "I believe it was inevitable," the Arbiter replied. "The Federation has grown complacent in its dominance. We have confused stability with stagnation, caution with wisdom." The Arbiter produced a small device that projected a document into the air between them. "This is a proposal for formal recognition of the Terran Accord as a sovereign interstellar entity with defined borders, mutual non-aggression pacts, and standardized trade protocols." Zhao studied the document carefully. "This is a significant shift from the Federation's previous position. Reality has shifted," the Arbiter acknowledged. "The question now is whether our two organizations will move forward as rivals or as different manifestations of the same goal, peaceful coexistence among the stars." "That depends," Zhao said, "on whether the Federation is truly prepared to treat us as equals. The Federation is 4,000 years old, Ambassador. Change comes slowly, but it does come. Your Accord has accelerated a process many of us believed necessary, but feared to initiate." The Arbiter's form shifted slightly. "There is one additional matter. Earth's application for Federation membership has been reconsidered." Zhao raised an eyebrow. "After all this, you think Earth would simply abandon the Accord to join the Federation?" "Not abandon," the Arbiter clarified. "The offer is for dual affiliation, a first in our history. Earth would serve as a bridge between our organizations." The proposal was unexpected, and Zhao took a moment to consider its implications. 5 years ago, this offer would have been received with jubilation across Earth. Today, I'm not certain. We've built something that many believe is better than what you offer. Perhaps that is precisely why the connection is necessary, the Arbiter suggested. Not to absorb you, but to learn from you. As the meeting concluded, Zhao returned to the horizon for the journey back to Earth. The ship's communications officer intercepted her with urgent news. "Ambassador, we're receiving transmissions from 7 previously uncontacted systems beyond the Cygnus Rift. They've detected our Nexus network activities and want to establish contact." Zhao smiled. "It seems our table keeps growing larger." 10 years after Earth's rejection by the Galactic Federation, Ambassador Elena Zhao stood once again in the Great Council chamber where humanity had once been deemed unworthy. This time, she did not stand alone. Representatives from 68 worlds of the Terran Accord accompanied her, along with delegates from 22 Federation worlds that had established cooperative agreements with the Accord. The chamber had been physically altered to accommodate the historic joint session, the first formal meeting between the Federation Council and the Accord Directorate, where once a single speaker's platform had dominated the center. Now 2 equal platforms faced each other. The Federation speaker, a new one, as the former had resigned following the diplomatic crisis, addressed the gathered representatives. Today marks not an ending but a transformation. For 4 millennia, the Federation has represented the pinnacle of interstellar cooperation. We believed our path was the only viable one for long-term stability. The speaker gestured toward Zhao and the Accord delegation. The emergence of the Terran Accord has demonstrated otherwise. Different approaches can lead to similar goals. Diversity of method, like diversity of species, strengthens rather than weakens. When her turn came, Zhao stepped onto the platform. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, or sensory organs, of beings from across the galaxy. 10 years ago, I stood in this chamber and heard humanity deemed too young, too unpredictable, and too emotional for Federation membership. Today, I stand here because of those very qualities. Our youth gave us flexibility. Our unpredictability fostered innovation. And yes, our emotions, particularly our stubborn refusal to accept arbitrary limitations, drove us to build something new when the established path was denied. She paused, looking directly at the Federation speaker. The Terran Accord does not seek to replace or undermine the Federation. We offer an alternative approach to interstellar cooperation, one that celebrates adaptation rather than fears it. Earth was denied a seat at your table, so we built our own. Now, perhaps, it's time to recognize that the galaxy is large enough for many tables. The formal signing of the Galactic Concordat that followed established recognized borders, cooperation protocols, and dispute resolution mechanisms between the 2 power blocks. More importantly, it acknowledged a fundamental shift in the galaxy's political reality, the end of Federation hegemony and the beginning of a more dynamic, diverse interstellar community. As the ceremony concluded, the Proximan ambassador who had first approached Zhao after Earth's rejection all those years ago found her amid the celebration. "Did you imagine this outcome when you began?" the Proximan asked, silver eyes gleaming. "Not specifically," Zhao admitted. "I only knew we couldn't accept their judgment of humanity's worth." "Humans," the Proximan said with a gesture that translated as amused affection. "The Federation feared you would disrupt their carefully ordered galaxy. They were right, but not in the way they expected." Later, as the Horizon prepared to depart for convergence, Zhao received a message from the Federation Arbiter. It contained only a few words, but they captured the essence of humanity's remarkable journey. "Denied a mere seat, you claimed the stars. Perhaps you were ready after all."